What's happening, y'all? It's your boy Sega Man. I am back with a great podcast that I'm doing today. A really very special brother, very knowledgeable brother that I've known for a pretty good time now. And this is going to be a really, really good podcast with him, in my opinion. It's well overdue. And I would like to introduce my brother. You know what I mean? We're going to get into some things about his life, gaming, and amongst other things. So, I would like to introduce my brother, Hebot.
Hey, how are you guys? How are you? Hey, my brother Sega, man, what's going on?
What's going on, man? How you doing today, brother?
Still feeling old, messed up, and broken.
Oh man, I'm starting to feel that way too.
Hey, listen, it is what it is, but we're here, right?
That's right. We're here.
One day at a time. What's up, guys? How are you?
You were
How's
you were
everything, my
coming
brother?
you were coming in really crazy, bro. You look like something from the lawnmower man. It was all digitized. It was pretty freaky.
Oh, uh,
It's all clear now, though. You're good.
I
You're
hope
good.
so. I hope so.
So
What's up, brother?
today,
Hey,
I
listen,
want to,
thank you for having
yeah,
me on, first and
yeah.
foremost. Because you did me the favor that I had the honor to interview you, and that was great. Had a lot of fun, good time. Got to know you a lot better, Sega Man himself. And I was wondering, well, how can we ever do something like that ever again? That would be so much fun.
Yeah,
And
man.
you happened to ask me, I was like, you know what? I got to return the favor. I have to do it for my brother. It's been a while
Yeah.
since it's been a while since anyone asked me. I did one with legal a while back, but it got ruined.
What happened?
So I think it got corrupted and didn't go through after we did like a 2 hour thing or 3 hour almost. But I told him we'd do it again and we never got the chance to. So
Wow, man.
hopefully, yeah, it is what it is. I feel bad, I always apologize to him about it, but
Yeah.
you know,
I
what can you do?
remember the I remember the first time you interviewed me, man. I was honestly I was scared to death.
Why? Really?
Yeah, because it was my first interview and I've never done an interview before ever. You know what I mean? So I was
No, you
praying I
did
would get
great.
through it good and do all right. You know what I mean?
No, you did great. Oh, by the way, look, just for you guys today, look,
Oh,
I got the pony hat today
he's
in celebration.
transforming.
I got the pony hat today. Look, it's
Get
actually
the pony.
all white. You see, with
Yeah.
the symbols. You
Where'd
know
you get that?
why?
At GameStop?
Nah, I love the color white, and plus it was a quality hat, and it was on
Yeah.
clearance for $5, for like $7, I think it was. So I was like, you know
That's a
what? Let
pretty
me pick
good
it up.
price.
Yeah, it's game related. I could wear it, and then I could wear it and celebrate National Pony Breakdown Day. So I figured, why not?
Are they gonna make that a national holiday, man?
Yeah, I think so. By the end of this generation, by the end of this generation, don't be surprised if there's such a thing as National Breakdown Pony Day. Hey, what's up,
Wild
Wild
horse.
Horse?
Thank you.
How are you?
What's up, man?
Thank you for stopping by, brother.
Haven't seen Wild Horse in a long time. He's been busy.
Well, he said I remember him seeing. He said he left a nice comment on one of your videos. Well, one day you were giving shout
Yeah.
outs, and he was explaining how, unfortunately, due to the scheduling where he is, he's
Yeah.
always in at work most of the time when we come on.
Yeah. He
So
was
what?
telling me.
So what ends up happening is it's too loud because he works in a factory. He said so he can't really always enjoy it, but he appreciates us doing stuff and you doing stuff. So it's a shame, but at least he's giving us support, and that's all that matters. He just said it now. He says you are at work. I still I'm the steel factory. I'm at work. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just glad and that he came in, man. He always shows up, when he can, and
Yes.
that's grateful. We're very grateful for that, brother.
I'm very I'm very humbled that you
Yeah,
took the
man.
time to just to see what brother Hebot's all about.
Well, he bought, man. I wanted to have a one-on-one with you, man, an interview about your background about gaming, uh,
Mhm.
some of the hobbies you like, stuff you like collecting, and just getting let people know to know you better, man. You know what I mean? So, my first question to you, my brother,
Mhm.
um, did you first start collecting uh, like the statues and toys before you got into gaming?
Yeah, I actually that I think is actually how it started for me personally. Ever since I was very little. As far as I can remember, maybe three, four. I remember always wanting to play with
Okay.
toys vividly, very, very vividly. I always wanted to play with toys. I always wanted to ask for toys. I remember having my Migos back then. I
Yeah.
had the Hulk. I had Spider Man. I had Batman. And I remember that very vividly. And I had Hot Wheel cars because I grew up alone. I was the only child. So a lot of times I spend a lot of times by myself because, my cousins, they weren't always around.
Yeah.
And because they had siblings, brother and sister or whatnot, they really didn't always hang out with me, right? They always kind of strayed away, and my family didn't always let them hang out with me.
Uh
So I
huh.
spent a lot of time by myself, at home. It was me and my mom. She was raising me. Then she, uh, married another gentleman.
Yeah.
Married a gentleman. As I got older, that became my father. He was my stepfather, but raised me until the age of 13. So um, I had a lot of time to expand my imagination as a child. So I definitely started with, collecting of toys. And that kind of went dormant for a while. As we go along, I'll explain. But that's how I started with using my imagination. Um, so yeah, I would say yes. I would say yes. I would definitely say yes. That's how I started with, you know, collecting figures and toys and stuff.
He bought back then. Can you remember, like, if you can, what was the
Yeah.
very first piece that you collected when it came to, like, statues, and like a one that's like really well made, like a very well collectible. What was your very first, like, let's say, like, expensive statue that you collected for?
Well, obviously, being a kid, you don't really know the value of stuff. And
Yeah.
at that time, figure collecting was still very small, right? The actual, medium was small, kind of like gaming. It was just in its infancy, it was starting to grow. So there wasn't really much of as far as value, and I didn't understand it as a kid. But what I can say is that when I got back to figure collecting, where it started being more on a serious, right, nature, right, of collecting figures, it was when I was introduced in school where we would do something called show and tell.
Okay.
So what show and tell was you would bring something that was very valuable to you that you enjoyed. In many cases, it was a fig, toys or whatever, and the kids would bring it to school. They stand in front and show it to the class and talk about it and explain what it was, what it is, where it came from, the story behind it. And that way the kids would get to know you and what you like a little bit more personally, right? And they did it with the girls, they did it with the boys. And that's how one kid was a good friend of mine at the time. His name was Yancy. He brought in these, 5.5 quarter-inch figures that were just out in the market, and they were called Masters of the Universe. But him in particular, he said, "Oh, this is He-Man, and this is Skeletor." and he showed them off. And when I saw them, it just blew my mind. And these big, heavy, strong dudes with weapons, and they looked barbaric because I was really a fan of barbarians because I had seen movies like Beastmaster, Conan the Barbarian, Red Sonja, and all of these movies, even though they were meant for adults, I would watch them with my mom and my dad, right? Because they, they didn't understand because of the language barrier that, certain things had heavy adult content, right? And that it might be inappropriate for kids, even though that wasn't their intention, right? So basically, um, because they did this, I think it kind of helped me evolve and developed mentally as a kid and get a lot more an open mind type of thing and understanding different types of mediums and genres, whether it was in comic books, whether it was in toys, and whether it was in movies, and then obviously as time went on in video games. So it kind of helped me expand my mind, really, to be honest with you. But I want you to understand, my brother, that um, a how are you, my brother Poseidon? That's my brother Poseidon. Nice to have you by, man. So
What's up, my brother? Welcome.
um, as time went by, I want you to understand, my brother Sega, man, that I had a window there. When I first started with my toys, I had a window there where I had went to Germany with my mother
Yeah.
because my mother had married or was going out, kind of. That's what it was. She was dating, and then married a man in the military that was posted in, in Germany for a couple of years, and she followed him, right? And because she followed him, we were living there for a while, but then, you know, it got really ugly, and he was, trying to be. He was very mean to my mother and me. He used to beat her. He
Yeah.
beat me, and it ended up ugly because I was a point where I took the broomstick and hit him over the head, and he gave me a black eye because of it. And then, my mother chased him down with hot boiling oil and burned him.
Oh.
And and she didn't get him arrested because he would bring, you know, um, women like prostitutes to the
Yeah.
house
Yeah.
to right in front of my mom. So it was really nasty. And I know that this don't probably seem like it connects, but there's a moral to the whole thing. So what ended up happening was once the his sergeant got involved and the neighbors that were good friends of my mother, um, started to vouch for my mother and showing them that yes, that he was doing this, he was doing that. He got court-martialed. The MPs came, picked him up, and it took my mother almost 6 months to get out of the country because we needed
Yeah, man.
paperwork and all that stuff. So when we finally got out, I remember vividly when we got here to the states and we were in the airport, and there was a gentleman with a big long box. Right, he was in a suit. The man was in like in a nice suit, and I remember it vividly. He was in a suit and he had a box that was really long and it said Atari on it, right? And I immediately recognized it as a video game console because I was seeing the commercials on TV. So I didn't know what it was, but I know I wanted one because it looked very interesting. And so when we got back, I started, I kept getting, spoiled by my mom and some people in my family where they would buy me toys because they knew I loved toys. And I remember getting this awesome Spider-Man car that came with Spider-Man that was actually an RC car, but you can take out the figure and play with him because he had like 5 points of articulation. And it was from my aunt, one of my, my favorite aunt, obviously at that time, and still is to this day. She was always really nice to me in that sense.
Yeah.
Um, and they knew that I didn't really have brothers, and I didn't have my real father because my real father had died when I was 4. I was about 4 or 5 coming into the states from Germany with my mom, um, and we were there for almost 2 years. So um, I remember that box. So then I started asking my mother for it, and I guess my mother was trying to do the research to find out how much it was if she can get it for me, but she couldn't because it was
Yeah.
too expensive, right? So she found for me I guess in some like in a thrift store probably at the time, or like a Salvation Army or something.
Yeah.
One of those consoles that were out before, which which would be those one piece consoles that would have like games in them. And that's how I started to see certain things, right? So I would see. I started playing something that had like Pong in it. It had like a shooting thing in it, and it had like a racing game where it would move. And the only thing that would move would be the car in the background. It looked like it was moving, and you would just move the car left and right. It was real funny. And then she got me a black box, and it was the Odyssey.
Nice. Nice.
So
I
that you
own one.
connect to the TV, right? That you can. But remember, there were different versions.
Yeah, I
I
had
think the
two.
one I think the one you have is the second version. I think.
Yes.
I believe, as far as I remember, it could be wrong. Could have been that one, but I remember it being a little different. So I think the one I got was the first version,
Yeah.
but it could have been that one. I'm just saying,
Hey, T
just to
Reaper.
try to. Hey Reaper, how are you, brother? How? Thank you for stopping by. I just want to say it, so I don't sound like maybe I'm lying or anything. But I remember vividly the box, and it was the first one that could actually connect to the TV and play with and stuff. And I didn't even know the name, how to pronounce it. To be honest, I had problems, reading until very late in my childhood, where I actually started to learn how to read more fluently, vividly, and clearly. I just had problems reading. I couldn't identify, and so I didn't know how to even pronounce it at the time, right? So between those two stages of what you just asked me, right? What was the first thing I collected that really I clinged on to, which was Masters of the Universe. I had that transition where in between that I started playing video games, and and the first console I got was the Odyssey, and then it wasn't until maybe a year later, a year to maybe 2 years later, that the Atari had made a cheaper, smaller model called the Core model, kind of like what they do now, right? And
Yeah.
it was in a It was in a gray box, and I got it for that Christmas, brand new. And ever since I got it, and I was able to play games like Pac-Man that you saw in the arcade, and I saw was able to play things like Missile Command that you saw in the arcade. And remember back then, I didn't even know what an arcade was. I just saw them in the arcade machine, like when I would go to like the pizza store, when I would go to the laundromat with my mother. You see what I'm saying? So I've seen things like Donkey Kong and like Crackman and like Missile Command on in these places, right? Uh, so once I identified with those games, I knew what they were when I saw them on the Atari. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
then I was able to tell my mother, "Hey, mom, I want to get that. I want to get the Pac-Man game." Of course, when ET became big, I want to get the ET game. I saw a GI Joe game, a Star Wars game, and all these properties that were from that time as they went along and as they came out. So, when I saw the He-Man game, for Atari, and all that stuff. So, but the thing was, those games were still expensive even back then.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of games that mother could buy me. But when my cousins got the Atari as well, my other two cousins, their parents were a little bit better off than my mom. So they would buy them games. So we would just trade up, and then I started trading up with, with neighbors, with friends around the neighborhood, and things like that. And that's how I was able to play more and more games, right? So between that time where I played with my Amigos first, and then I started playing with He-Man because I was really into the barbarian stuff like
Hey,
like the
Lewis. Yeah.
Conan movies and stuff like that. Which that's what attracted me so much. While other and plus everybody else liked things like GI Joe, the Transformers. I didn't really like Transformers because I didn't really like how they looked in robot form. Even though I liked the cartoon, I didn't really like the GI Joes. Even though I did, but because they would feel brittle and cheap, they feel like they break easier. But the cool thing about them was that obviously, um, it's more they were more like they were more cheaper to buy. Like a
Yeah.
GI Joe figure back
Oh yeah.
then
What are they? five
was like a
dollars?
No, it was like $1.75 for a figure, and I used to get them because where I went to Catholic school in my local area, right? It was called St.
Yeah.
Nicholas. So where I was in that school, a block up from St. Nicholas, was Main Avenue, and literally there's a store that was right there called Toys, the number four, and then the word all. Toys for all, not Toys R Us. And I used to think that it was like part of Toys R Us because you're little, you don't know any better. And it was privately owned by this gentleman, this white guy. I
Yeah.
remember him too because we would go there all the time, and that's where I would get all my GI Joes, all my
Robots.
He-Mans. You know what I mean? All my even my gaming once I started getting into the next stage of gaming. But yeah, so between that transition, the first thing to answer the question, I just had to give you those details to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
The first real figure that resonated with me, that got me heavy into it, where I valued it very much, was Masters of the Universe.
Yeah. And when I was younger, he bought. I had a few of those. Um, but back when I was younger, man, real quick, I used to actually collect the GI Joe figures, and I'll tell you real quick. I went to a Sears, right? And at
Hmm.
the time, I'm gonna admit this to all everybody, in the chat. I couldn't afford this one. I think it was Destra or somebody, and I really liked the
Okay.
way the figure looked. So I thought I was slick, man, and I tried to lift it, caught.
Right, right.
And my friend that was with me, this little white dude, he didn't get caught. I got caught, man.
Ouch.
Yeah, it
That
scared the
sucks.
death out of me. I was in the back room with them, and
Yeah.
they said we're gonna call your mom and we're gonna do this and that. I was scared to death, man.
Well, I
But
mean, people don't realize that for our parents, it was very hard for them to get us stuff, right?
yeah,
Especially people like us that grew up in, like, urban neighborhoods, that we were raised cheap, poor, and very cheap, right? Very
yeah,
poor,
didn't have the money, man.
right? Where sometimes our dinners, right, would be, white rice with fried eggs, let's say, right,
Yeah,
or some toast with peanut butter and jelly,
yeah,
or some spam, right, with spam with French fries. You get what I'm trying to say?
yeah, man.
And people don't realize that that's how we were raised, right?
You remember
Because
this, Ebot? You remember when I was younger, man? When we were poor, my mother served me and my sister. It was called puff rice cereal with it was a milk that you had to mix with water, that powdered milk. You remember
yes,
that?
yes, I do. Yeah, yeah.
Tough
It
times.
was, well, it was like instant rice. I remember that. Yeah, and then you would have to warm it. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. You would mix it with the water, absolutely, in the powder. Yep, I remember that.
But
Absolutely.
you had to eat. It was terrible, but you had to eat.
Well, I mean, for us, even though we may not have liked the taste, but we were grateful because we had something to eat.
Yeah.
We didn't starve. We didn't starve. We were at least able to eat. And that's why now, so all the things we have, we look at it, we're like, we're so spoiled. We're so grateful at the same time because us growing up wasn't like that. And for our parents before us, it was worse.
Oh yeah, a lot worse.
It was worse. And they brought that to the table to us and telling us, listen, this is what happened with us. This is how we did it. You should be grateful that you at least have a lot more. And they were right. We were having a lot more. But to today's standards, yeah, GoBots were before Transformers. And I think that in some places, right,
I
it
remember
was vice versa.
GoBots. I had some.
In some place, Wild Horse, in some places, it was different because I remember seeing Transformers first, right? And we didn't understand that it came from Japan and it was based off Takara, right? But I remember seeing GoBots much, much more later after Transformers. So it depends, I think, where you were from, because I know some people say that like even like in the UK, for example, where the PC Engine, which is the TurboGrafx, was out there before, something like the TurboGrafx here in States.
Yeah.
And I've had to adapt to understand that because for me, I'm talking about based on me when I was little, right? in my general area and how I got introduced, right? Like if you went to Puerto Rico, which is where my mother was from and where I'm also from, because I'm Puerto Rican. And for those
Yeah.
of you that may not know, mixed obviously with American, but I was born here. Um, and I also have part German in my family as well with my father. Um, when for me, even when you went to Puerto Rico, there was a lot of stuff that came here to the states that never even made it to Puerto Rico. And if it did make it to Puerto Rico, it was like years later. And for us, it was old already, if that makes any sense, Wowers. So I think it all depends where you were actually raised and came from, what state, or even what country. Because the release dates were different. But now that we're older, we understand this, we know this. But when you're young, you don't know this. So based on my experience, like I said, for me, my introduction of those types of things, I always remember Transformers before GoBots. As a matter of fact, when we saw GoBots, we looked at it as, oh, they're just trying to copy off of Transformers and it's a cheaper version. But when you looked at the toys by today's standards, the GoBots actually looked more like robots, even though they were smaller, because remember they were a lot smaller
Yeah, they
than
were
the
small.
transform right, than the actual Transformers. Because what they tried to do is they try to capture capture the market at a better price point by making it a lot smaller using real die cast, which was a smart move because the Transformers were much bigger. They were a combination of die cast with plastic, and they were much more expensive, even though they weren't that expensive if you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. But for parents like ours, like in my case, my mother was raising me by myself for a while. Um, and she was working one job by herself. She was alone, a single mom. It was hard. It was very hard. And I didn't understand that until way later. But, it was pricey. And she would get me all the stuff. And of course, I wouldn't just get it overnight. I had to earn it. Oh, like she would tell me, if you get, you know, straight A's for your report card, then I'm going to reward you. And that's how she would do it. And that would also influence me on trying to do better and harder in school to get good grades to they get rewarded. Which is something that's kind of lost now with these kids because they just get things and they don't really work for them. They don't earn them in a lot of cases, right? Even if you try to make them earn it, they always kind of find a way to cheat or get a shortcut, right? So yeah, Sega man, that was my very first toy of collecting that touched me in a way where it just made me a love and until this day that I've carried over to wanting to continue collecting toys and you know and and uh and being such a heavy collector now. But remember, again, I had a window where I got away from all that. The only thing I never got really away from was video games, but I got away from figures for a reason, and I'll tell you why as you ask me the questions.
So he bought
Hmm.
most of uh the chat that's in here, I believe, is older. But I wonder if
Right.
Wild Horse and like our brother like Lewis L. and even T
Hmm.
Reaper and Poseidon, um, do people remember? And I had these figures. They were called Micronauts, and I
Oh yeah.
had Shogun Warriors. Does
Oh
anybody
yeah.
remember those?
I
Those
remember
were.
Shogun Warrior.
You remember
Yeah,
those?
yeah. They used to have the big 12-inch resin, hollow resin robots that would move like 5 points, and then they would have like where you would be able to shoot out like the missiles and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
they
I
were made
had
out
the
of, hollow plastic.
I had the one Shogun Warrior, right?
Mhm.
He bought brother that he shot his fist off. His fist would
Yes.
shoot off. I forgot the Shogun Warrior's name, but I had that
Yeah.
figure.
That was one of the more popular ones. He's the one that had like the horns going up this way,
Yeah,
right? On the
kind of
head and mask.
remembers you of Voltron, kind of.
Yes. That's
You know what I
called
mean?
those figures, that's called rotocast. The
Yeah.
way they're made, the plastic. That's what they're called, rotocast. Definitely,
Rotocat.
I had a Shogun. Well, my cousin did really, and I would play with it. I never got one, because I was never big on the robots and stuff like that. Even though I used to love watching Robotech Sunday mornings
Oh yeah,
on
man.
on TV, and that was before
Robotech.
Voltron. That was before Voltron. Watching the anime Robotech back in the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s on Sunday mornings, uh, real early, like 5 in the morning. Get up to watch that. Then my mother would get mad at me and yell at me because she would tell me, if you can get up Sunday mornings that early to watch those cartoons, right? And you can get up and not give me a hard time and get up in the mornings weekdays when you got to go to school. That was the argument. And she was right. But you remember those conversations. So it was funny because it was like Saturday mornings. You would get up religiously, watch cartoons from 8 in the morning and sometimes 7, all the way to 12 midday, and then they go away and then they start giving other shows.
Yeah.
That like National Geographics and stuff like that. That were more educational. But we would watch the cartoons on every channel. It was channel 2, channel 4, channel 5, channel 7, channel 11, and go watch those cartoons. Uh, you know, Straight for eating our breakfast. You know what I mean? Playing with our toys. I remember those days. Those were great. But I also remember the Micronauts. Yeah,
Yeah.
cartoons in the '80s are definitely the best. Um, uh, and then Micronauts was the one with they were like kind of astronauts, action figure. I remember those.
Yeah. I had a
Then,
couple of those.
yeah, I remember those. I never had none. I never owned them, but I remember seeing them. My friends, some of them had them. Like I said, I was never really into like the sci-fi stuff. You had your Transformer guys that were into the sci-fi stuff, or
Yeah.
the people that that like the Robotechs and stuff like that, and the robots. Then you had the kids
Oh,
that like the GI
Peltrex.
Joes.
Yeah.
Then you see the guys that like the GI Joes that was more military, and and then you would have like in my case, hey Peltrix, how are you, brother? You had guys like me that would like the barbaric stuff, like barbarians and stuff. Because I remember that I also was very fond of like Black Star. You guys remember Black Star?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
he was like he was a younger guy, looked kind of Native American with that chain, and he had that lightning sword. It was like a mixture of barbarians with sci-fi, and he would fly on the dragon, and then when you got the figure, you would like hit the back button, had like a little speed dial thing where you would keep on rolling and rolling it, and it would create spark plugs in his chest, and it looked like it has fire coming out of the sword over his chest. I remember that. And those figures with Black Star. So again, that was like kind of like the one of the only things that I would collect that had sci-fi elements and barbarian elements. And then of course later on, other things I collected, like I got heavy into Mask, Mobile Suit Strike Command. I got heavy into collecting. Never collected turtles heavily, never until now that I was able to get the newer stuff from NECA. Um, got heavy into GI Joe, um, Thundercats. Even Silverhawks. I liked. I collected that. Bionic
Silverhawks.
Six,
Yeah.
Bionic Six, Chase, Jason the Wheeled Warriors. I like that. There was a lot of things, but then it got to a point where it was too expensive for my mom, and she couldn't buy me everything. She would tell me it's either one thing or the other. So that's how I kept collecting He-Man until for about 7 years until it finally ended because I had like every single Jazz Baz. What's going on, brother?
What's up,
Uh,
brother?
where I basically, got the entire collection. I had Eternia, I had Snake Mountain, I had Fright Zone. Hey, how are you, brother? I had, Castle Grayskull. I had every vehicle. And as a matter of fact, the only figures I didn't get were the ones that came out in the UK specifically, which was like Megator and which was the giant guys. And, I never found the Ninjor, Squeeze, and Sorceress Wave ever. I tried and looked for them, never got them. But yeah, I did heavy. Mainly was He-Man, Thundercats, Silverhawks. I even collected cops for a little while. Mask was really heavy. I had everything Mask almost as well, except for the European releases that later I found out were exclusive there and never got them. But yeah, but then but during that transition, like I said, I stopped collecting because I got to that age where you know I started to get older. I discovered that I was able to do certain things like sing. I had a talent. Uh, my mother used to sing, and I guess I developed it from her and my uncle. He was a singer. He would perform locally a lot of times, and so I got into like dancing. I started doing shows in schools, like when they would do the plays. So I started getting into doing the opera stuff in school with with the drama class. I was vocal music director for about 2 years in the high school when
Oh,
I got to high
nice.
school,
Nice, man.
with the shows that they would do in drama class. So I kind of got into girls, right? Obviously, and other things. So that's why I stopped collecting at that point. Uh, it was no longer about collecting figs or anything. And I got into a point before that where I got into BMX racing. I had gotten my GT Performer where I was trying to do stunts and nearly got myself handicapped because I hurt myself trying to do stuff that I couldn't do. So
Wow, man.
I did all that stuff.
Yeah.
But during that time span, like I said, I always did one thing that I stayed consistent, and that was playing video games. I never got away from video games ever. So, as far as my big console and where it went from there, it all depends. Yeah, Hercules. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember Hercules from New York.
Yeah.
I remember that movie. Um, I like I said from the Atari, I went and then I got a Coleco. Then after the Coleco, I end up getting um I end up getting um I forgot what it was. I think it was in television. And there was old, those were old, and I just kept trying out different consoles. But then when the crash happened with Atari, where everything went away for a while, I didn't play anything at home. Only would start getting introduced to stuff in the arcades, where I started going more to the arcades, hanging out with my friends, and I started seeing more and more different types of games. Which one of the first games that got me into heavy in the arcades, where it impacted me, was when I saw Double Dragon by Williams at the time,
Uh-huh.
which is why I'm a big beat 'em up fan because that was my first real introduction. And Ring King, the boxing game. Remember?
I remember that.
The, they used to go 100 miles an hour and break
Yeah,
people up.
I remember
Ring
that.
King, that was one of my favorites. And then I started seeing things like like Outrun and Cortec from Sega. And during that time, if you remember, Nintendo came out and it started becoming like the big thing. But I didn't like the look of Nintendo's games and the style. I just didn't like them. I didn't like the way they looked. So I kind of like held back. But I would play at my friend's house, stuff like that, until I saw the announcement a year later about Sega making a Sega Master System, which I was following Sega in the arcades.
Yeah.
And it was one of my favorite companies because I started to realize that most of their games I liked, right? And most of their games caught my attention. And I was really a big fan. Then I started seeing things like Raston, right? That's why I gravitated so much with Raston because it was a barbarian game. It
Yeah.
reminded me a lot of He Man. And during that whole time, I could say, man, imagine making an amazing He Man game. And no one ever did it. um, with these style graphics and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a console that no one else wants to get because I think I'm gonna get what I want more there. Especially when I saw the commercial and they showed that they had Outrun Afterburner coming out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I saw Fantasy Star Online, how it looked like the 3D corridors. It looked way better than what I saw on Final Fantasy on Nintendo. So I was like, and little did I know that the console was actually available and was out in Japan way before the Nintendo, the Famicom. The Master System, what came out in America, was the third version of Sega's, you know, oh, I love Wonder Boy. That's another one I got introduced in the arcade as well. Wonder Boy, absolutely. But little did I know that it was the third version of the console, that one that we got here in the States. It was the Mach 1, Mach 2, and then the Mach 3.
Yep.
Mach 3, Mach 3 was the Sega Master System, and I didn't know that. So it was out even before Super Famicom in Japan. They were just trying to get a American distributor, which ended up being Tonka. Um, and that's why the cartridge didn't look as appealing as the Nintendo stuff with the nice artwork, because Tonka was a company that did diecast trucks. Remember?
Yeah, I
So they
remember that.
really, yeah. So they really didn't know anything about video games, and I think that also worked in Nintendo's advantage, because a lot of people would buy their games purely on just looking at the covers. So if the covers are great and look cool, you would get sold by the game and the idea of what the game was going to offer just by looking at the covers. They would have some really cool covers. You remember Contra? They had a cool cover. Contra, Castlevania had an awesome cover. Double Dribble had a nice cover. You know what I'm saying? They had like really cool covers. Our Razor. Hey, Pokemon Fusion,
What's
what's
up?
up? How are you? He was
Thank you for coming.
Pokemon Fusion. I haven't seen him in a while, but he was a gentleman who won the giveaway that we did for the Avengers.
Oh yeah,
So cool. Yeah, yes, it was him. If I'm not mistaken, I remember it was him. Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah. So it's nice to see you here, man, brother. Thank you for stopping by. So yeah, so I think that was the biggest advantage that Nintendo had, because those cartridge artwork, man. Oh man, Shinobi and Master System. Don't even get me started. I'll tell you a story, Wild Horse, since Sega Man is hosting this interview. When I re-
Please
when
do.
I didn't know Shinobi was coming out from Master System, because remember, I had problems reading. So still at that point, I wasn't uh I wasn't able to read, and it was a very embarrassing thing for me, right? Because I was getting older and I still didn't know how to read, and so video games kind of pushed me to that over the edge where I said, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to learn no matter what. And I took an entire summer with my mother, or actually 2 summers, where I kept reading and reading and reading. And then I started finding little secrets, like breaking up words into different pieces. Because in one word, usually you'll find another word in it. Like shinobi, if you look at it, the word in is in the word shinobi. And that's how I would start putting them together with the sounds. And that's why I taught myself to read, but it inspired me because I wanted to learn how to read these magazines, which should have been because I wanted to learn how to read my books from school and work. But it was mainly because I wanted to read the magazines. And I had no clue that Shinobi was coming, right? So one afternoon, right? Oh yes, I remember that one. The Atari 2600 Slim. That
Oh
was
yeah.
actually that was actually a very nice looking Atari console. I remember that. That was really nice. That's the one that had the black, looked more futuristic. It had some nice red trims and silver on it. That one was real nice. I remember that. So check it out. So you know, so, oh, through a friend, you got to say, oh, that's really awesome. So I ran one day after school, right? Like I normally did on Fridays from St. Nick's, and I went to Toys for All. And I would go in there and look at the games coming out, because he would have like the main middle section where you would pay, right? The cash register. He would have these window displays going around in the form of a square. And inside there, he would have all the new games for every console. Yeah, Fantasy Zone was awesome. Yeah. And when I looked into that display, right? Sega Man,
Yeah.
and I saw uh, oh yeah, the boot up game, the maze. That was a secret game inside with the snail. Absolutely, absolutely. You're not a real gamer and fan if you don't remember that and know about that. That was like a big deal that we used to brag about. Oh, we got a free secret game.
I got
Nintendo
it to
doesn't
work
have
one
that.
time. Yeah.
Really? Yeah,
The
I remember
snell
how to
the
do it.
Snell game. Yeah, when you load up the
Yeah,
Master System, if you wait a few minutes, it'll come
you
up.
just. I think you had to press the two buttons down
The two
and
buttons is
up,
yeah.
and and
I
up
played it.
on the controller, and then it would pop up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I spent hours playing the game. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was basically the idea was like Pac-Man, but you got to get out through the maze, but with the snail. I remember
Yeah.
that. It was awesome, and it was a blue screen. So Sega Man and Wild Horse and everyone here, it was great because when I went to the store and I looked down, right, I saw the box. It was white, and as a matter of fact, if you go to the Xbox store, right, and you look for the Shinobi arcade game, that was 360 one, that's back compat.
Yeah.
That cover, for some reason, the one they use is the actual cover for the Sega Master System game.
Yes.
For whatever reason. But when I saw that ninja in black with the purple silhouette and the white backdrop, I got chills. I got so excited. I was like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" I was like going crazy. I remember vividly. It was after school. I ran home, and it was
This
funny
one
because
he
across
bought. There you go.
there it is. Absolutely. When I saw that, and it said the arcade in the corner exactly. When I saw that, I ran because across the store, right? There's a big ass parking lot that was literally right across from the store where people would park to go to the stores on Main Ave. And I remember running, and I swear to God, right? I think there was a point where I almost got hit by a car. Not saying it that I'm proud of it.
Really?
I'm just saying how hyped
Oh,
I got, how
you were
excited I got.
super excited, man.
Super excited, right? When you're little, you do and younger, you do stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
So I remember running home, and I was out of breath because I'm asthmatic. So my mother was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" She thought I was having an asthma attack. I was like, Ma, they got the game. They got my game. They got because Shinobi became my liquid crack when I went to the store. When I went to Green Acorn Arcade,
Yeah.
that was a local arcade by the owner. His name was Tom. I
Where was
remember
this
him.
arcade at? He bought.
Right, it was right in the corner when you went up my project's building, going up towards Main Ave, going up towards the school, the high school. It was right in the corner, very small, but it had a lot of games in there. He had like at least 50 games, and he would get all the new stuff all the time. But he would have to take out games and bring new games because he was very small. So he would sell like hot dogs, hamburgers, French
Yeah.
fries, and
Yeah.
he was also a big uh, baseball card collector. So he would get like Donruss cards. So a lot of kids would come in and do trades for baseball cards because he would have like a little setup that looked like a bar, but he would
Yeah.
only serve food. He would never serve alcohol. I remember him. His name was Tom. God bless him wherever he may be, because he probably passed away by now. But he had glasses. He was a chubby guy. He used to have that mushroom haircut to the front. I
Oh
remember
yeah. I remember that. Like a
back
helmet.
then, right? And so a lot of kids would go in, like the kids that were older that weren't really into video games, but they were older and they were more into like the sports would come in and trade baseball cards with him. So, it was a lot of fun. So you had the baseball card collectors, the people that would come in to play pool, because he had like two pool tables in there. And then the people that played the video games, which was us, right? And then we would start recommending things to him because whenever we would go like to Seaside or something like that, Seaside would always get the games first, right? So whenever we saw a new Sega game or something, we would come back and tell him, "Hey Tom, they got a new Sega game. It's called this. You think you can get it?" And then he would go look it up. "Oh yeah, I see it," and he would order it and then get the game. And we would do that. That's how close of a relationship we had with our local arcade. And it was just great, man. It was a fun time because that's where we socially gathered up, like we do now online, but in real life, and just kind of a blast. We would challenge each other, and we get mad. We go outside. We have a fight. Stop
Yeah, man.
fighting,
Those are
and
the
and
old days. Those are the good
and
old
then,
days.
then come back in and talk shit and play again. That's what we would do. So um, that that arcade experience for me was very very vivid, and it opened up my eyes a lot and gave me more exposure to gaming. So it really is what cemented where I realized this was something that was going to stick with me for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to stop liking or ever stop liking video games, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, when I saw the Master System, I opted to get the Master System because everybody else had Nintendo. Like, why am I going to get a Nintendo? For what? I could play that anywhere. I want to play something different. And I'm glad I did because since I played the Master System, I started to realize, hey, listen, this console may not be as popular, but it looks way better graphically. It feels better. It has better colors, better games, more diverse in their games. They have more original IPs that were being made by the actual company itself because they didn't have a lot of third party support. And I had all and I was especially with Bragg when they would have the advantage, for example, like when they announced Double Dragon for the Sega Master System. And then they said it was going to be two-player co-op, which it wasn't in the NES version. And then when you saw the graphics, you realized they looked more like the arcade than the NES version. So then that became bragging rights. Which version is better? You bugging? Sega Master. No, but the Nintendo one is actually has more is longer. It has more content. Yeah, but it's not two players. You're bugging. Blah blah blah. Blah. And that's when the console war shit
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
started with me and people, and that's when it started right there. When that damn Double Dragon came out, I remember vividly, man. When Double Dragon came out, I told you that was my first game that really resonated with me because it was my first introduction, my first real introduction, and Outrun. That's why I really liked arcade racers at the time, and even Afterburner. So I was like, I really loved that game. So when I saw there was a better version on Sega Master System, and it was the system I had, oh man, I started bragging hard. I started bragging hard, and I would start looking at all the details, start investigating the sound effects, the music quality, everything. And then obviously as I started reading magazines, um, it kept getting better and better, and I kept getting an advantage because kids, most of them that like video games, didn't care about reading the magazine. So then I was able to get information about games coming out soon, or then when I saw E3 in the magazines and they were showing all these upcoming arcade games, upcoming games coming out to consoles, and what companies was doing them, and what developers was creating them, and how the graphics look. This is what became basically what has transitioned to today that I have become so knowledgeable and have so much, you know, uh, gaming history, right?
Yeah.
It all started from this, and because I didn't know how to read, and I really was embarrassed and ashamed of myself, and I wanted to learn how to read because I wanted to know what it said in those gaming magazines. And I know it's nothing to be proud of because I should have been more invested in my schoolwork, but because I had that obsession with video games, right? And fondness, it actually helped me with school going forward, right? And I was able to become, an honor student and all kinds of stuff as time went on. So I appreciate it. I own a lot to gaming in that sense because it helped me in many, many different ways uh, as I was getting older. So that was my whole transitioning, where then I got Genesis, and Genesis started doing better things than the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo, like having Mortal Kombat with blood, and the Nintendo was censoring stuff. And as I went along, I started learning more and more, reading these magazines. So I mean, I've been talking enough. Anything else you want to ask me, just let me know.
Ebot, man, everything you've been talking about is just very, very good, man. Very good about your gaming history, man, and collecting for the statues and toys, man. Great stuff, man. But
Yeah.
what I want to know, Hebot, what game or game system actually made you really start getting into like collecting like systems like the Sega Genesis, or what what
No,
what
no.
what made you get interested in collecting like just games in general,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
systems, brother?
It was a master system, without a doubt. It was a master
Yeah.
system. The master system resonated with me so well because remember, you guys may not remember, right? Do you remember Choplifter? Of course I do, Jazz,
Yes.
man.
Oh yeah.
Choplifter. And you know what's funny, Jazz? That see any guys, anything you guys bring up, I bet you I'm gonna have a story about it because Choplifter, all those years, I thought was a Sega game because it was published by Sega.
Yeah.
But in reality, the developer and the people who own it was a completely different company. And I didn't find that out till years later. But I my first introduction to Choplifter was in the arcade, the Sega game. And then that was another game. That was another one of those games where are you there? Can you hear me, second man?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm sorry. There you go. That was another one of those games that when I saw that it was on the list of games available on Master System, that made me excited.
Yeah.
Because I did, like Quartet, I played that in the arcade in Green Acorn, as a matter of fact. And when I found out it was on the Master System, I bought that. When I found out Choplifter was on the Master System, I bought that. When I found out that Outrun was there, Afterburner, I bought those. That Double Dragon was coming, I bought those. And Rastan,
Raston. Yeah.
remember what I told you guys? Barbarians was my thing. Rastan,
Raston. Oh yeah.
excuse me for that, brothers. Rastan was only available on the Master System. It never came out.
Here we go, Hebot.
Love it. There it is. Please tell me you have the cover for Double Dragon too, because I love that cover too. And if you noticed, Sega Man, that Tonka learned to adapt the same thing that Nintendo was doing with their boxes because they started putting artwork in front of the boxes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Look, you understand?
Double
And when they started
double
putting those,
dragon.
look at that. Mwah, beautiful. Like I said, so when they started putting that artwork, it made the console more attractive. But at that point, I think it was kind of late. But it still did very well in Europe. It did better
Yeah.
than it did than Nintendo in Europe because, I think it sold like 25 million units in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so like I said, when I saw Double Dragon, and then and then there was other things like Consadin, and then I saw Shinobi. Then we had like Maze Hunter,
Yeah.
Spy versus Spy, the little micro cards, Haunted House.
Oh yeah. What's up, Slick
So
Slayer? Yep.
so many stuff, right? So many stuff. It really resonated with me because I really like the arcades. Hey, sick, how are you, brother? It really resonated with me because I really liked the arcades. But because I liked the arcades so much, the games, and I saw a lot of them were going to the Master System, and the Master System was actually Sega themselves that put out the console and making the games. They were going to be very close interpretations of those games based on the Master System or when they would come to the Master System, right? Then they had Rambo, which I completely loved, which was Akari Warriors basically, but with the Rambo theme and world. But it was so much fun because I liked the Akari Warriors.
Yeah.
And so I would brag to my friends, y'all playing Akari Warriors, but look, we got Rambo. It's actually a movie game based off the movie. And it was good quality at that time. So I had that. I remember having the Wonder Boy game uh, because I liked it better than, playing, let's say Mario. It was a lot quicker pace. Alex Kidd in Miracle World really, really got me into the platforming because it was super hard, but I loved the fact that it was so unique that it had where you fought the bosses, which a lot of people can't stand. But when you fought the bosses, it was during that gimmick of rock scissor paper, and also when you when you get your mother for me, please. When you played the game, you were able to play on a motorcycle, on a helicopter,
Yeah.
on a boat. Remember, you were able to get on a boat,
Uh huh.
and I really, really enjoyed that the game was showing and throwing so much diversity at you. You know, I was really, really excited, right? That I was really, really excited that and intrigued that it would change. That it would that the actual transition of the gameplay mechanics would change. I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that when I played something like you know like um like the Mario. The Mario was always the same thing. You hit the bricks, kill them. You got to grab. You would grab the shell, throw it, and then when you get your powers, you would be able to shoot, and that was it. And I didn't feel that with Alex Kidd, even though it was a lot more harder, and the gameplay was nowhere near as polished as Mario. Because I can admit that it was nowhere near as polished. Mario was just very polished, very easy to play, very player friendly. Next to something like Alex Kidd, the Alex Kidd gameplay mechanics felt very floaty, and they didn't feel very responsive. You had to get used to it, um, and I did because I kept practicing, practicing, practicing. So I don't know if that's the reasoning for me getting so good at, because I would take the challenge of the games that were harder to play and keep playing them until I actually mastered them, which helped me with games that were actually better with better gameplay rather to be
Yeah.
able to master them easier. But I got to the point where, like I said, something like Shinobi, that was my favorite game at that time, um, that I could beat the game with one quarter. I did that with Altered Beast as well. I did that with Golden Axe. So I think it came from the fact that I would play the games that would have bad controls, and I would keep playing them until I mastered them, and will be able to play any game, whether they have wanky controllers or control, or really precise and very good quality controls, right? Because like I told you, I went to with my mom. I don't know if I finished saying the story, but I went to her running. She thought I was having an asthma attack, and
Yeah. Yeah.
she goes to me, "You okay? You okay?" She thought I got beat up or jumped or something. I was like, "No, no, I'm fine. This is they got my game. I really want it. Oh my god, can you get it for me?" And I remember my mom. I don't know what she did, but I think she asked. To be honest, I think she asked my aunt for money borrowed to, because she was like, "Oh, but I don't have the money," and then she saw how excited I was about it, right? And
Yeah.
how I wanted it really badly. I said, "It's the game that I like playing in the arcades." Because the other thing was, she was getting upset with me because I kept asking her for money, whether it was $5 or whether it was $2, or at the very most, you probably get $10 on a good day to use for like lunch, right, for school, or to get something I needed, in school, like books or pens or whatever, because you could buy it in school. And instead, I would go hungry, not do that stuff, and I would wait, come out after school, go to the arcade, and I'm terrible for this, and spend it all on Double Dragon, spend it all on Outrun, spend it all on Quartet,
I did the
spend it
same
all,
thing, man.
or I would spend it all on this point. In this case, Shinobi. I was like, we never seen nothing like Shinobi. The graphics, it was a ninja, because ninjas was my favorite second thing as well. I think I like ninjas actually more, if I think about it, than I did barbarians. But
Yeah.
ninjas and barbarians, I used to watch all them Sho Suzuki movies, American Ninja 1, 2, and 3. You know what I'm talking about. Those were just, I
Yeah.
love ninja movies. I love ninjas. Ninjas was a big thing back then in the 80s. I freaking adored ninjas. And seeing this character, he was a ninja. He had to save the little girls, and all that awesome stuff. And I was like, you know what? I love this game. So my mom knew I was spending money on it. So she figured, well, if I get it for him, he could play it at home. Maybe he'll stop playing it in the arcades,
Yeah.
and save me some money long term. And I think this is the way my mom saw it, right? And to a certain extent, she was actually right, because once I got the game at home, I got so involved trying to beat it that I really stopped going to the arcades, right, and stopped playing it, right, because in the arcades I pretty much mastered it already.
Right.
And you remember the Master System version had it felt like a slow motion type thing, like when you
Yeah.
would do the jumps to go to the top part, it would do it and it would go like, doo. It felt like a slow
Yeah.
motion type game.
Yeah.
You remember? So that took a lot of getting used to, because again, at that point, us being young and unaware, we didn't know what the difference between a 60 frames per second game was versus a 30 frame, right? And I believe that Shinobi was like 30 frames or 45 frames. It wasn't really fully 60 frames in the home version,
Uh-huh.
right? So it took me a lot of time to get used to it, and we used to have a lot of flickering in the graphics, right? In the home version. So whenever it flickered, if you threw a ninja star, it would go right through the character. You had to wait until it wasn't flickering, throw it, and you would always kill him. That was
Yeah.
another secret that people didn't realize and found out until later on. So you know, I she got it for me, and I was so ecstatic. I was so happy. I was like, holy cow! Um, and it was like one of the best days ever. And I wanted to get Fantasy Star, but she couldn't get it from me either
Yeah, that's
because, huh?
this one.
No, that one's Fantasy Zone.
Yeah,
I'm talking
fantasy.
about,
Now that's a
yeah, that's a good one too. I'm talking about Fantasy Star.
oh, Fantasy
Um,
Star. Yeah.
yeah, where the RPG. Yeah, you probably have it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Um, so the thing was, the reason why she couldn't get me that one, even though I wanted it because I was so intrigued by the graphics and the commercial, was because that game was $90 at that time.
They're
Uh,
expensive back then.
and people don't realize that games being pricey has been something that existed even way back when.
Oh yeah.
Drinking whiskey. No, I'm just lying. It's tea. So you know, it was it
This
was
is
it was something it was something that I had to miss because my mom
remember
couldn't
this
afford it.
hebot?
And oh yeah,
Transbot.
Transbot. Yeah, that's another good
That's
one.
a
That's
it
the
kind of
U
looks like a
card.
Shogun warrior, don't it?
Yes, it does. That's a U card. That's the
Yeah.
actual U card.
Mhm.
That's like the first. Um, that was like the first. What you call it? It was like the first introduction for independent games
Yeah.
because those were smaller games built by a smaller studio with smaller budgets, and they were able to put them on and play them on the Sega Master System. And those games cost cheaper when you went to buy them. They were like $25. The ones that were U cards, I
Oh
remember.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, which I believe the technology was introduced with the PC Engine, if I'm not mistaken, or they kind of made it after the Mach One, because I think the Mach One was before PC Engine,
Didn't
and the
Sega
Mach
had
One,
it first, right? They had the cue
I
cards.
I think they're called Hue. It's
Cue cards. They had
HUE.
them first, right?
I believe so because I believe the tech. I gotta look into it because I forgot. But I think with the Mach One, they already had the tech there, and then PC Engine came out a little later because they were really an 8-bit machine. When they came out with the TurboGrafx, they called it a 16-bit machine because they put two 8-bit chips in the console, but they would work independently, and it was very difficult to get them to work together. So
Yeah.
a lot of games still looked 8-bit, even though they were supposed to be more 16-bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when the Genesis came out, that's why the Genesis games look more advanced than the TurboGrafx games, even though they
Yeah.
look nice too on the TurboGrafx. If that makes any sense, but that's all a whole nother story. So my first the console that really resonated, that made me that want to get all the consoles was Master System. And remember back then we couldn't trade in our consoles to get money for them. So I had Master System, then I had Genesis, then
Mhm.
from the Genesis, I ended up getting a Super Nintendo. When it was cheaper, like when it was 100 and something. I also got the Sega Saturn, obviously.
Yeah.
Got me a Nintendo. Got me a TurboGrafx. Then I got later on the Dreamcast. Uh, and then I got OG. I never got PS1. I refused.
Yeah.
because of what happened with Saturn. Never got PS2. I refused because of what happened with Dreamcast. And obviously jumped to OG because I didn't care about PS3. Because I already knew what Sony was doing with things like PS2 and PS1. I didn't like how they got into the business. Um, Even though I ended up owning them, but I bought them when they were like $50. No, PS2. No, that's a lie. The PS2 I ended up playing because my son, his grandmom, may she rest in peace, she bought it for him for his birthday. So that's why I was able to play more
Okay.
games on it.
Yeah.
But I bought the PS1 for like $50 at one point. And then got rid of it. Didn't really keep it for long because I didn't like it. I thought the console was trash. That's just me. Um, and so it was the Master System. I definitely have to say it's the Master System because even though Atari played a big part because it was the first console I actually had that was next like brand new, that was a big thing at the time. It was what made gaming a more global thing, right?
Yeah.
And I also had Odyssey, like I told you, in television, ColecoVision before that. It was Atari, my first introduction, right? But
Uh huh.
it didn't really hit the impact other than Pac-Man the way that the Master System did, because the Master System was unifying the arcade stuff with the home consoles, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it really made the but like I said, between the arcade and that first console is what let me know that I was going to keep gaming as part of my life, going forward for the rest of my life, because I enjoyed it way too much. And I was just having too much fun with it. So it was definitely the Master System that made me want to collect, games and consoles.
All right, Hebot. I got another question for you, brother. What is your favorite Sega system of all time?
Please. Oh, my favorite Sega system,
Yes.
without a doubt, because I forgot to mention there was even a point where I even got the Atari Jaguar in the 3DO. That's another some other ones
Yes.
I got.
Yes.
But unfortunately, like I said, because my mother didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't making a lot of money, even though I worked a couple of part-time jobs or whatever when I was younger, teenager.
Yeah.
Um, I started to really put my money into buying nice clothes, especially when I got into dancing house music and stuff, and buying nice shoes and sneakers and Eastland boots, Timberland boots, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really put my money towards more collecting, but we also didn't have the whole thing of being able to trade in our consoles either. We didn't have that still. So I kept my consoles as long as I could until they started to die out.
Yeah.
Um, and then what I did have that I knew had value, once the trade-in thing started coming into play, I started to trade in to get money for to buy other consoles, right? So that's why at this point in my life, I don't really have any of the legacy consoles, so to speak,
Uh huh.
um, or a lot of them, because the last one I had was Saturn, but that ended up breaking after like a good 10 years, 15 years I had it. But the
Wow.
console that is my all-time favorite, it's got to be definitely the Sega Saturn, without question. The Dreamcast is probably right there next to it. But the reason why I like the Saturn so much is because the Saturn was did so many cool things and transition arcade where you were getting arcade quality graphics at home. Um, like it was the very first beginning of it, right? But it was doing a lot of different IPs that were new and fresh and that you weren't seeing anywhere else, that were really intriguing. Things like, Clockwork Knight 1 and 2, things like, Mr. Bones, for example.
Yeah. Mr. Bones, a
They were
great
just,
game.
obviously Panzer Dragoon 1, 2, and then Saga. Um, you know, ABOC, Astal, uh, even things like Johnny Bazooka Stone or Three Dirty Dwarves, Burning Rangers. There were just so many titles there that weren't really known by the arcades, right? And they weren't known by the publishers or developers like Konami or Capcom because they weren't really giving support to Sega Saturn. And then we had other games that I was reading about that were going to come out, like Tomb Raider and Resident Evil, which then ended up coming out on PlayStation, but originally were for Saturn, which ultimately came out later on. And those versions, even though graphically they lacked a little bit, they were much better with content and as far as gameplay
Yeah.
and control, right? So the Saturn just really hit all those, hit all those benchmarks, right?
Hmm.
Of gaming that really made it a whole different thing that you never really seen before, and I know it started with Sega CD and 32X. Those were like the stepping stones, which I also had. Um, but the Saturn was it was that console, like when you were able to put your Sega CDs, your CD musics disc in there and play them and listen to them.
I used to love
Um,
doing that, man.
right, and then the dash looked like a spaceship or like the cockpit of a spaceship.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
Saturn little spaceship shuttle, like. Yeah.
yeah, and then the fact that it has the lithium battery that you can back up your memory card, or your memory was backed up of your saves internally right on the console without having to put like an expansion card. That's what you had. That was the only option you had on PlayStation. And then I discovered, the actual backup RAM card cartridge that you would put in,
Yeah.
and it would let you have games play with at the best quality because it had more memory in it. And also, those cartridges give you the ability to play region-free games or other games from other countries, like Japanese games, where I picked up Symphony of the Night. My wife picked it up for me. Actually, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. She had picked it up for me at the time. Games like the Deep Blue, that was like a Sega's answer to Resident Evil, and it was a very good game. You were under the water
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
inside this like base that was under the water. And plus the edginess, right? The edginess of Sega, where their games felt more like they were for adults and not for kids, right? They would have
Yeah.
violence, adult themes, like games like like Enemy Zero, which was from the creator that did D. That was on Sega Saturn. That was another fantastic, horror, survival horror, puzzle platformer game with some action in it as well. Info motion video, right?
Yeah.
Which it was a mixture of the FMVs with actual gameplay, like the way they did with Quantum Break, which was really cool. But those were like the beginning stage, and then I dabbled in stuff like like the Sewer Sharks and Night Trap,
Yeah, those were good. Oh, Sega CD.
yeah, those are good games that were on Sega CD, but I dabbled in those as well, just to see how it was, which was that was like the beginning of those, you know, point and click interactive movie style games like Don't Not Makes Now, like Life is Strange.
Oh
Those like
yeah.
were the begin. Those are like the beginning stages of those things. So and just the whole look of it, the controller where I had six player, 6 button D pad. The PlayStation only had 4 buttons, remember? Um uh just the whole feel of it and the Sega branding of it. Like it just felt like Sega and I really, really enjoyed it. Then obviously they had Daytona, or the World Series Touring, Max TT, Hang On, the new GT Hang On. Then they made an Afterburner. They made arcade classics in the Sega ages that came with Outrun Afterburner and Space Harrier. That's what it was. That they were in the disc. They
Yeah.
had that. They were arcade perfect. A bunch of stuff. Just a bunch of stuff that at that time you couldn't get on PlayStation, and you weren't seeing it. So for me, it was it was uh it was my favorite time with video games, and it was also my worst time because I saw the hate it was getting. I saw the bias. I saw that people were just supporting the PlayStation because it was the new kid in block. It was $100 cheaper, even though they had horrible games
Yeah.
on the console. They were horrible, and uh, and I was trying to figure it out why, and I didn't realize that it was because people were following it by the because of the name, because it was Sony on the box. Because Sony, as far as the electronic company, they were a big deal at that time, and people just bought their products and excuse me one second, say a minute.
Yeah. Hebot will be back. It's a really
Yeah,
great podcast with Hebot, brother. Really,
yeah.
really
Sorry,
enjoying this.
yeah. I had to blow my nose, and I didn't want to make that noise and stuff because I'm congested a little bit. So it was a really great time for gaming as far as evolving from 2D to 3D. But I think the execution in the 3D realm and the 2D side scrolling realm and the arcade quality was being represented a lot better on the Saturn, and people were just missing out on it because they were following the popularity, obviously, you know of what the PlayStation was doing at that time. And as you know, it ended up dying out. It didn't sell for more. After a year and a half, they stopped making them, and it was only PlayStation everywhere. So you didn't really have a competition, even when the Saturn was out, because it was more expensive. A lot of these places didn't want to carry it because Sega kind of made the announcement without giving them a warning, and so they were upset that they couldn't make shelf space. So you never saw the Saturn in places like Child World or KB Toys. They didn't even carry it
Children's
because they
Palace.
because they got upset that Sega didn't give them. Excuse me, that Sega didn't give them a warning or a heads up to get ready for them. So,
Yeah.
but it's because they wanted to beat Sony to the launch because they heard that it was going to be cheaper and they had a better 3D processing chip for the 3D games that looked a little bit better and smoother. And they were concerned because they know that that price point was going to be a game changer in the sense that Sega couldn't afford to do the same thing and cut it by $100. Even though if they would have done it, they probably would have been able to compete, and win that generation, in my opinion. But they would have to have taken the loss at the beginning. But they were so afraid with what they happened with them with the CD, Sega CD, and 32X having so much negativity and losses within the company that they weren't willing to take that chance. So cutting the console by $100 more to be competitive with the competitor um, was almost impossible for them. They didn't have the money to do that, not in the beginning anyway. And so, as you see, that's what ended up being ultimately um, their Achilles heels, where they couldn't get away, and no matter even after they lowered it, they had no more third party support. They only were making their own games themselves, even though they were great games. Like House of the Dead One had came out only on that console, and you could only get it there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, so many things. But the Saturn was my favorite console of all time. I think it has the most underrated, most underappreciated, and a console that truly deserves to be recognized now in this age. They should do something like the Mini or bring out more Saturn games to the arcade marketplace on both consoles. Doesn't matter. Even if they put it on PlayStation, doesn't matter because they have a lot of games that people have never played, like Three Dirty Dwarfs, like Mr. Bone, like Amok, like Estelle. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Which I think people will be pleasantly surprised if they did, or even if they remade them. So yeah, definitely the Saturn without question. Hmm.
Yeah. That was a great, great console. I still like it today. It's a good console, man.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So he bought. We're gonna go here in a little bit, man. But I want to get your perspective on one thing, man. What do you think about? Because we talked about your childhood in gaming, growing up enjoying all kind of systems, collecting for all kind of systems, great fun in arcades with friends and family.
Hmm.
So, in your honest opinion, Hebot, what do you think about gaming today and going forward? Your honest opinion.
Well, it's hard. It's hard because there's a lot of different layers to what's going on with gaming right now. I think it's the healthiest ever been in the sense that we have so many people playing games now that there's no way that it could just go away and just die out.
Yeah,
But we got to keep into consideration that and in mind, right? That these gamers, yeah, they play games, but they don't understand the history of them, right? Or the obstacle and the hurdle that it was to get gaming to where it is today, right? As a
yeah,
format, as a form of entertainment, as a format, right? Where it's actually respected, it's fruitful, it's profitable, where it's obvious probably the form of entertainment of today that's the most viable and the most valuable, even more so than movies. It makes so much money. Um, but the problem with it is that it's just that we have a lot of people that play that are not don't understand the value of the industry. They just play because it's the cool thing to do with streaming games, right? A lot of people just stream one game like Fortnite, and that's all they do. That's all they play because they look at it as, oh, this is a business to make money. Same thing like kids, a lot of people that play on mobile, a lot of casuals like mothers and grandmothers that not necessarily would play on a home console, right? They'll
yeah,
play something like Flappy Birds. Not saying that that's what they're playing right now. Just an example that it's just something quick and fun, like an old school Pac-Man on the go when they're on the bus, when they're at work, during a lunch break, in school during a lunch break, if they're teachers, whatever, um, or they're in the laundromat, something like that, to pass their time as they're doing other things, right?
yeah,
Or we have the gamers that only play one specific game, like sports games, or one games that only play the Call of Duties, right, or the PUBGs, or the Apex that we have today.
hmm,
Those gamers, even though I appreciate their presence for the fact that they're helping the industry make money and stay fruitful, I don't appreciate them in the sense that they're kind of killing gaming and what its true essence of gaming is, right? Because they don't really know the difference between what a real game is supposed to be and the quality of it versus what they play because it's popular on, right?
yeah,
We play Fortnite because it's fun. I play with my friends, but and it's popular. But they don't know the true essence of gaming, where when you play it, it was a form of escapism, where you played in these worlds with these fantasy locations and characters, and you can escape your mind and go in there digitally, interactively, and become these characters that are badass that you can't really be in real life, and just have a good time interactive wise. Which is why I also have a lot of disdain for a lot of the Sony fan base that want games to only be, let's say, heavy on mocap, heavy on cutscenes, that they concentrate more on the story than the actual gameplay mechanics, or
yeah,
gameplay diversity,
hmm,
or gameplay fun factor, right? Because gaming is about having a good time interactively, and the different gameplay mechanics that they introduce to you along that journey, along that ride, along that time that you invest to keep you enticed and to keep you interested, right? That's why I said to a lot of people that I feel that games need to stray away from being too long. For example, and I know a lot of people are like, you're crazy, but you need to get more bang for your buck. I get it. But the problem is when you make a game way too long, right? You start to lose creativity because then the developers can't figure out how much more to do, what new things they can introduce. So they start becoming and feeling too tedious or monotonous. So the fun factor that starts in the beginning of the game, as you go along, gets kind of stale and becomes boring in a lot of games at a lot of time. Um, and plus, this also eliminates the ability, right, in my
Uh huh.
opinion, to create sequels because sometimes they put so much in one game by keep doing DLCs or added content that it takes away from doing a sequel because now you've used up your resources with the ideas and putting it all in one game that you don't know what to do for the next game, even though the game's supposed to have a sequel, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like the open world games. Open world games are awesome in the sense of immersion because it feels fluid, right? It feels all one succession. But at the same time, because it's a map that has to keep loading, right, loading up and changing as you're going, you can't have diversity in the field being in different levels or different areas, right? Like, yeah, you can make it feel different when you go in a cave or when you go into a town and have different buildings and stuff. But if you notice, a lot of those games they lack boss battles, they lack gameplay diversity, like getting on a plane and having a plane segment, or getting on a boat, having a boat segment, where you fighting and shooting and fight a boss in that boat segment, or getting on a car, or getting on a turret, or becoming like a beat 'em up from a hack and slash back to an RPG. You get what I'm trying to say? It's a lot harder to interpret that in these games
Yeah.
because it's more demanding and the resource has to, the console have to register, read all this all at once, then keeping good frame rate, keeping good resolution, adding, techniques like ray tracing or having great sound effects like Dolby Atmos. All that is resource heavy. So I feel that open world games, and then they get too big, the maps, where it's to the point where it's overkill. So you feel like it's too much to do and you lose the excitement and you lose the want or the need to continue playing and finish them. I think those two types of things in gaming need to kind of reconstruct itself or change. The way I think that, like, for example, open world games should be like Tomb Raider, like the way that it's a big map, it's divided in sections, but each section is closed out. And
Hmm.
every time you play that section, it's like you're playing a level. And once you pass that level, the next section opens up. I feel that way is more effective. And you can add boss battles, you can add different gameplay mechanics, and it will work. It would translate better in 3D the way it would translate good when you play it on 2D. Hence is why I play a lot of games in 2D because they have all that gameplay mechanics, transitions, and changes. Um, which is also another reason why I adore games like Local Cycle because even they kept their level base, but the way they did it was they transitioned to different gameplay mechanics, so it feels like a 3D, 2D game with a lot of different priority,
Yeah.
and it always feels fresh. It always feels like it's something new being introduced every time as you go along within the game, and that's what I think games are missing today in a lot of cases, especially with the big open world games. I think even though it gives you the immersion and feel that you're in this world seamlessly or flawlessly, right? It's still, even though it's seamlessly, it still doesn't. It kind of loses the fun factor, right? Because
Hmm.
it starts to feel like rinse, wash, repeat. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the way they did with Gears, that they made a board that was really long. Then they did two other boards where there were open maps that felt like open world, And in each of those places, when you stopped in an area, it felt like little levels within those in that stage of that world, like the ice section and the sandstorm section. And then when you went to the end of the game, it was another big long level, and it kind of mixed the two together. And I think that's also something that works and that can be incorporated a lot better with future games to give the people the feel of open world with level base. I think that also is a nice approach, right?
Yes.
So I think gaming can continue to grow, which it will. But what my fear is that it's going to grow for the wrong reasons, right? I feel it's going to grow because we have just casuals or normies playing these mobile games or playing these streaming games or open world games or free to play, and you just play for micros and as you go, and they're kind of like what we used to look at back in the day at people that played only Madden or people that only played FIFA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how I look at those gamers. Like the way I look at those guys that only play one game like Call of Duty or that only play, sports games. That's how I see them. So I think that the evolution and the innovation, unless companies like, let's say, Microsoft or even Nintendo to a certain degree, keep doing the things they do, that they try different things and try to evolve stuff. If we don't have these companies and see that type of stuff, the innovation part of it, right, to move gaming forward is going to get lost in translation. I feel like we're going to get stuck where it makes money, but it's because we have these Call of Duty players or these Madden players or these streamers or these mobile players or
Hmm.
these free to play players. You see what I'm saying? And it's nothing against them. That's their preferred way to play. That they have that right, and it's all good. But I feel like the actual gamers that came from the roots, from the beginnings, that actually play the games for escapism and for what they were supposed to be. I feel like our our bracket is getting smaller and smaller, and they're kind of forgetting about us. That's why right now I think it's great to see so much things trying to come back nostalgically. Like they just announced the House of the Dead 1 remake that's
Yes.
coming for consoles, right? First on Switch, right?
Hmm.
Railgun shooter games that are light guns is a forgotten medium. You barely see them anymore. As a matter of fact, this generation or last gen, we got one game, I think, that was called Dead Zombie Dead something. It's a zombie game, but you could only play it with the light gun that came with the pack-in or with the controller to a certain extent. But it was the
Yeah.
only real light gun shooter that was available on that generation of Xbox One and PS4. So it's a dying genre. And so it's nice to see that. It's also nice to see that they're remaking a lot of games that were gems back then that not necessarily didn't get the traffic they deserved or the recognition, like an Alex Kidd. So they're remaking Alex Kidd and they're bringing it back. Like the sequels to the beat 'em ups, like Ninja Turtles, they're bringing it back, like Streets of Rage 4, like Panzer Dragoon,
Yeah.
um, or even the Wonder Boy Monster World 4 with the little genie. It's nice to see that because I think those are the type of games that are perfect to use as the formula of remastering, remaking, or even rebooting and introducing them to today's new audience so that these people could go back and get the curiosity of the new gamers and try to play the old stuff and realize where it came from, the impact that it had, the importance of them in the gaming history, and so these franchises could stay alive and continue to live on without dying. And I also feel this is a way that gaming will be preserved and will get still more innovation going forward, even though we're talking about older games, right? Um, I think this is what gaming needs to do going forward, but I fear that it's going to be run more by the normies and the casuals that only like I said, mobile games or free to plays or games that they can stream for revenue because they look
Yeah.
at it as a bit as a business only as opposed to a hobby. Whereas somebody like you or me, if we're coming into it and we do something like this, streaming, whether it's gaming or talking about gaming or playing video games, like we did last night with Hardcore, where we were playing and then we stream it. We're doing it that we can even make revenue, yes, make a profit, but doing it from with something that we love and that we actually appreciate and have respect for it that we helped build from the very beginning. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's why it's important for people like me and you and guys that are in our circle continue to do it so that we can help gaming where it actually came from, like somebody like Zobi that I just interviewed, stay preserved for what it really is, for the essence of gaming, for the real true essence of what video games supposed to be, and still have everybody else like what they like in modern day, whether it's streaming gaming, free to plays, or mobile game. You see what I'm saying, my brother? That's how I feel right now with the
Yeah.
industry, what direction is going, and what they need to do to keep it preserved. And I think Microsoft is a big doing the most to keep it preserved. Back with the back compat, with the boosting of games, this is a big deal, and people don't realize it.
Yes, and I think you're right, Hebot. They're really keeping it preserved with the backwards compatibility. They just then did some amazing stuff with the Xbox One with introducing OG Xbox into the backwards compatibility family, which was fantastic. And not only that, but making it in, I believe, 4K.
Right, right.
And it just looks like a brand new game. If you go back and play these old games like Blood Rain 2,
Mm-hmm.
Panzer Dragon, games like
Ninja
Blinks the
Gaiden,
Time Sweeper, it looks like a
Ninja Gaiden
brand
Black.
new game. It's amazing
Yeah,
what they're doing.
even Ninja Gaiden Black. You see it in
Yes,
4K, and
masterpiece.
and a, and a lot of people are like, well, backwards compat has existed, right, since one of the televisions back in the day, Atari had backward compat. You're right,
Yeah,
but here's the thing: the way Atari executed backwards compat, we got away from that.
yeah,
And the way Atari did it was when you bought their newer consoles, the old consoles you had for the Atari 2600 worked on the 5600 and worked on the 7800. You see what I'm
yeah.
saying?
And ColecoVision,
Meaning,
remember? Expansion module.
right, right. Meaning you didn't have to buy the games all over again. All you did was use the game you had already that you bought and that you had from before and play it on your new console. But we got away from that. When the backwards compatibility was introduced, you know, with other mediums and other companies like Sony, right?
Yeah,
It was where it was limited. It was limited, but you couldn't really expand upon by preserving it. You had to literally keep those consoles, right, in order to play, right, only certain games, or in order to play all your games, because only certain games would be able to be played via backup path.
yeah,
The way that Microsoft has created it is where from this point forward, whatever you play, it doesn't matter what system it is, as you get more generations and other consoles come out, you're going to be able to play all those games, every single one, moving forward. Unless there's some licensing issues and they try to work out those particulars. But that's the biggest difference. It's the approach and how they incorporated backwards compat, where you can take that OG Xbox disc and just put it on the new one, and it works.
yeah,
And not only does it work, it works with better quality added on, and it's being added on for free.
right.
Uh, so you're playing the game better than what it was originally on the actual original console itself, and that's what makes it such a big game changer, and makes it easier for people to be like, you know what, I'm gonna buy the game because it's preserving it. Just like the peripherals, you don't have a problem buying a new controller because you know that controller is going to work with your next console. You know what I mean? Most of the other companies is no. Once they bring out a new console, you can't really use that controller for the new console
Right, right.
unless it's in limited uses. Like the example I told you before with PS5, you could use a PS4 controller, but it only works and reads games that are from PlayStation 4. It
Yeah.
doesn't work with PS5 games. So that's kind of a nuisance. There's no point then because the point of it is that you can use it with your console with every game on that new console with no hiccups and no hesitation. The way that Microsoft has done it. That's why I said they're doing a lot of things per gaming keep preserved and doesn't get lost in translation.
It would be nice if they would do that, but unfortunately they don't. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, but yeah, Hebot, man. In closing, man, because we're gonna get going here. Um, what do you look forward to? Like, do you think things will change, Hebot? I mean, it seems like things are starting to change, honestly, for the negativity against our preferred console, which is the Xbox. You know, I mean, Phil Spencer and company are doing great things. I think they're meeting our demands and everything. I'm pretty happy with what I have from Microsoft and what they gave me as a product and platform. So,
Hmm.
do you think they can do anything to improve more, or do you think we're good? Do you think it's good right now? What do you think is going to go in the future for Xbox, man? And then that'll be it for today, brother.
Well, there's always room for improvement, right? With anything,
Mhm.
obviously. So I think, yeah, sky's the limit for Xbox at this point. They could just keep trying and trying and make sure that they keep trying to better the ecosystem, the console, whatever, because it's going to be long term better for the gamers, their fans, and the industry. So, yes, there is room for improvement, no matter what. Continue trying to innovate. Innovation is always good. Continue trying to push the envelope. Now, as far as do I think it'll change the way that we're starting to see the shift now?
Yeah,
Yes, it is, but only if guys like myself, like you, like Sega Forever, like 100, like E-Rock, like Legal, the ones that are very pro Xbox, right? And
yeah,
only if guys like us continue to be vocal, to be clear, to be coherent, and to be not, logical and showing that and not giving up, right? Not receding, not letting the other people that are the shapeshifters that they're okay with Xbox right now because it's getting good press, but the minute that Xbox gets negative press, they go back to where they were, right?
yeah, yeah,
Not letting those guys that clearly are showing that they are kind of clowns, for lack of a better term, and that they're disingenuous and that they show that they really are not about the culture, the gaming community, or about preserving it and sustaining it and making sure that it lives on. Um, Making sure that those guys we keep them at bay and don't let them take control of the narrative again.
yeah,
Because if we let them take control of the narrative again, remember there's always normies and newcomers every generation. So every time a newcomer and a new gamer comes in and that generation comes in, when the messaging is shifted, they're gonna go with that messaging, right? They're gonna follow that messaging. They're gonna follow, oh, but people are saying this is not good because the controller is too big, or because the power brick looks like a cement block, whatever the case may be. Those little
yeah,
stupid things like that. When you let the narrative be controlled by those who are not real gamers, in the essence of their heart, in their head, because they grew up with it and they understand it, then that's gonna hurt it all over again. So it's not gonna matter all the good negative press we're getting now and the shifting. It's gonna go right back because there was nobody there to put these guys at a halt, stop them, and say, "Hey, cut the bullshit out," because that's not how it is. Stop
Right.
lying. And that is up to guys like us, which, to be honest, is not going to be easy because we're older, we're tired, we're not going to be able to stay here for 20, 30 years doing this. Plus, we got families and real life problems and situations that are way more important than video games, right?
Yes.
Even though it's our preferred hobby and we love it and it's part of our lives, but it's truly up to us, and it's up to us to teach the new age gamers, like our kids' age, that are actually interested enough to respect gaming and to know the history of gaming and to appreciate the work that has been done for gaming to get it where it is, to them to continue our messaging going forward to all the new gamers. It's our responsibility, like people like you and me, to teach them so that they know, and then they look back and see this when we're gone. That, these guys were showing the real focus and messaging about gaming that should have been shown and should have been given from the very beginning to all the younger and newer gamers. Uh, so, hopefully, I want to think and believe and feel that what we're doing, whether we have a big following or not, someday will be recognized because we were always here. We were always ahead of the game.
Right. Right.
We were always about the culture. We were always about the industry. We were always about the love of gaming, not because we did it because everybody else was doing it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, and I would like to think that that's the impact that we'll have even when we're not here, when we're long gone. So I think that's the only way that the positive messaging and narrative will continue staying on Xbox favor and go the right way. Now, am I saying not to call them out if they do something wrong or that
Oh, of course not.
doesn't that doesn't feel right? Absolutely not. No way. We got to keep on being vocal because that's our right as gamers and consumers. That's our right, and that's what we need to do. But also being logical and understanding that it's a business and that certain things have to be done based on the business model. Because if they don't, then long term, there will be no more Microsoft, or there will be no more Sony, or there will be no more Nintendo, or there will be no more Amazon for that matter. Which is why right now a lot of the Sony fans are having such a hard time with the transitioning and changes within Sony because they're so used to one way and the mentality that's been presented to them with the narrative of being biased and giving false information or being so Sony centric that now that they see Sony doing these changes because they need to do them,
Right.
they don't want to accept it. They don't want to realize that if they don't do them, there will be no more Sony. If Sony could be no more, possibly, right? And they think it's just people like me and you that are Xbox guys, for example, that it's just us hating, sending a message of hate because we preferred Xbox and call those X twats or Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Fanboys. When that's not it at all. We're telling you because our beloved company like Sega and Pioneer and TurboGrafx went, or even Atari, went through the same changes. And when they didn't do them, they end up going to the wayside where they were gone either forever or for a long time. Because Atari's trying to come back now,
Yeah,
but
they are.
I don't think it's gonna work in their favor because they're so far behind. It's just not the same thing anymore, and they don't have the recognition or the respect that they did at one point in their career and their brand of their company. Um, so, like I said, we seen it firsthand. We were there and witnessed it firsthand, and that's why we're telling you guys that Sony has to do these things because if not, they'll be gone. That's why Sega turned into a software only company, and that's
Yeah.
why they're still here because they make software. But at least you're getting something from Sega, right? Even though it's not the same Sega, but just to give an example, that's the same thing that's going to happen to Sony. If they don't do this, there is Sony will be no more. Like you guys really need to stop and understand that they're not indestructible. No company is, even Microsoft, and that there's a point in their company's lives and history where everything can come to an end, and you don't want that. Not as a real fan and not as a real gamer. You wouldn't want
Right.
that. So even though I hate Sony and I wish they leave and never come back, but I know there's real fans out there that like them. So for those fans, I gotta understand that it's not about what I feel. It's about what they want, right? Because that's what they know. So for those guys, you got to give Sony a chance and let them do what they got to do. Because if you don't, they might be no more, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I feel. That's how I feel about the industry right now.
Oh, that was great. Great stuff, Hebot. Well, guys, we're gonna end the podcast today. Hope you really enjoyed my podcast segment with Hebot called One on One with Hebot, man, about the history of gaming with Hebot. Talking about his history with collecting statues and toys and gaming. And I'm really just proud and happy to do this with Hebot, man, because it was in a long time coming, and I had a great time with my brother Hebot. We've been friends, gaming brothers on here for a while now. So I just want to thank
Well,
you, Hebot, for doing this with me, man. Really
hey,
appreciate you, brother.
not even necessary. I thank you, and I'm proud to be part of your brand. I'm humbled to have people like yourself and others that follow us and support us to actually even take the time because I'm just a regular person. I mean, like I said, I just hope that what I bring to the table, even if it's not recognized now, but someday down the line, it'll be recognized. And I really want that to be a thing, so my kids can see it and be
Yes,
proud of
mine too.
their father. So they're gonna be proud of their dad. They're like, oh, my dad tried to do something about it. My dad spoke on it. My dad tried to pay it forward with his knowledge, and I'm proud of him. That's all I want. Even my wife to a certain extent. If, when I'm not here, that I make some type of impact, and I would be remembered for doing something
Yeah,
positive. Positive
yeah,
that with something that's looked at very big today, which is video games.
yeah,
That's all I can ask. But yeah, the pleasure's mine, and I'm great. I'm so I'm happy and excited that you even asked me to do it because a lot of people haven't really reached out to me to interview me. And like
yeah,
I told you before, I did one with legal, and unfortunately got ruined. And he put a lot of effort into it, and I felt bad. And we were supposed to do it again, and we never got the chance to. So, in that sense, I feel bad. But I did want to remember a while back with Jay Long and Master Chief. That was a lot of fun, and I appreciate him for that as well. But there's a lot more I can say, so and get more in depth. But it's just so
yeah.
long, and you have so much time. We
And
only have
shouts
so
out to
much
them.
time. Yeah, and shouts out to them. But you can only have so much time to talk about so much things. But I got so many stories I can share, and I'm just glad that I can share just a fraction of them today here with you guys. Maybe another interview I can get into depth with other things. But thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it. I love you, and I'm very humbled for this.
Thank you, brother. And I'm gonna tell everybody this before we leave. If it wasn't for Hebot, to be honest with you guys, when Hebot interviewed me, after Hebot interviewed me, it made me actually, honestly, wanted to get into doing more videos and doing podcasts. So
That's
it
great.
was Hebot that actually, in all trueness and retrospect, got me interested in doing podcasting with him on We Got Next. Being a guest sometimes on Hundreds Channel back then, and doing the XL podcast right now with our brother E Rock. So it was Hebot that actually made me come more out of my shell. Like I would do videos about my video games and things like that. It wasn't that great a quality, but after
Um,
talking to Hebot and Hebot interviewing me, and doing like where we're playing games together and stuff like that. It just made me want to do more, create a podcast, and create my brand more. So I
That's
take my hat
fantastic.
off to my brother Hebot on
Oh,
that, man.
that's fantastic. Knowing that I had that type of influence, impact, and made you want to do more. I'm so I'm so proud to know that I touched you in that way. That's really awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah, and I've been watching before I knew Hebot, before Hebot reached out to me. I used to watch Hebot on other podcasts. I used to watch him on other podcasts and listen to those brothers, the UK brothers, where he did the podcast with
With
I
Microbox of
can't-
X. Yeah.
Microbox of X, and then you did a podcast with what's the guy's name?
Iron Wolf with the direct action me?
Yeah, and what's his name? Yo, yo, yo. This is the Xbox
Oh,
show.
yeah,
You know,
Kaleidoscope. Right.
Kaleidoscope. And I used to watch them all the time because it was a really good Xbox podcast back then. Because back then, guys, remember in 2013 and up, we really didn't have positive Xbox podcasts. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
used to watch these guys all the time.
Even
So
even when we used to watch like Next Gen and crap, because
yeah,
they were the only ones being positive about Xbox.
yeah,
And so
Crap
and
Gamer
so
and Next
mhm,
Gen 720.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
and I listened to him for a long time because it was so much just negativity about Xbox back then. It was unbelievable, and I believe that we made it out, guys. I mean, we've been through a lot of shit since 2013, but
Oh
we're
yeah,
still here. We didn't change. We didn't go to another preferred console. You know what I mean? We prefer Xbox, and we're still here.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Well,
so
I was
we're
trying.
living proof that we're true, diehard Xbox fans and stand by our brand.
Yeah.
So
And what I was trying to show whenever I spoke in reference to
and Sega
Xbox,
forever.
right, and Sega Forever, right, when I would do stuff with them, I was trying to show that I was just trying to present to the table all the misinformation that there was about Xbox because there was a lot of misinformation. And to be quite honest with you, there was a lot of information that even next gen and crap never brought up, right? Even Mooch,
Yeah,
even Colton Dealer, even to
yeah,
today,
Colton Dealer.
stuff that they do that they never bring the real information. Even Boom, because those are the bigger guys now in the community.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of things they don't really know and bring up detail wise, or they just refuse to mention it, or just don't bother because they might think that it's not important, even though it should be, and even though it is, because clarification and detail and context is very important with anything because it determines whether people can see the whole picture or just what they want you to see. And I've always felt that the responsibility for me, right, was to
yeah,
be as detailed as possible so that I can keep the interest, but at the same time I'm teaching, right? So that people will want to get the like yourself, the motivation, the enthusiasm, and the want to
yeah,
go and research and do the work and find out, is he about saying the truth? Well, Eva was talking about this is interesting. Let me go find out. Which I feel I've done that with someone like you, even Tuckmaster, so to a certain
yeah.
extent.
Hmm.
Even somebody like Erock, our brother Erock. And I think that because even J Long, because I used to talk to him and tell him so much stuff,
Jay
and
Long,
he's
yeah.
a lot younger. He's like
Ghost
one of my.
Rider.
He could be my son, Ghost Rider as well. He's just my son's age. Even him, he started to want to research a lot more gaming because he said the influence that I was giving him, right? And I guess the enthusiasm, right?
Yeah,
And that makes me proud. That makes me proud. Because whether we agree or not, that's not the point. It's just that I means I did my part and I did my job as an influencer here on this platform to touch certain people, which I hope I've done that with a lot of other people, because a lot of people have told me that, like somebody like Poseidon, they say that they love me, the inspiration I give them, even
Yeah.
100. And that means a lot to me. That means the world to me because it means, and I feel like I did my job.
Yeah.
What I intended to do, it worked, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
really it all. Um, and like I said, I'm proud that I pushed you because I told you your voice, just like I've told a lot of other people in this industry right now that are influencers. I told them your voice needs to be heard. Your
Yeah. I
passion,
remember.
your perspective, your passion needs to be seen because people will follow you. People will come to you. People will gravitate because you're real and it comes from the heart. Remember when I told you that?
Yeah.
And I
I
meant it.
remember.
And I think that it's showing now when you do your shows where you see somebody from Rio de Janeiro stop by and see your
Yeah.
show.
That was
You see what
amazing.
I'm saying? That was amazing. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't even think I had that privilege on my We Got Next.
Yeah, that was
So
amazing, man.
so I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. No, I'm not jealous because I'm part of the Alpha podcast. So it's my
Yes.
podcast
That's
too.
right.
So it don't matter. So I'm not jealous. I'm just being stupid, people. But it is what it is. But yeah, yeah. And I told you that, and I'm glad that you're seeing that because I see that you're the freedom uh, that you have, the how much more comfortable you are in your element.
Yeah.
Where I saw you did an interview with Slicks there, right? That's
Yeah.
something that I hope I was an influence because you saw me doing it
You
with certain
were.
people, you
You were.
know.
I would have never did that
Um,
back then. So,
right, right. I know you were very shy, very quiet. Yeah, yeah. And I think I did that with Sega Forever too, where I made him feel much more comfortable and in his element because that's how I try to interject or I try to interject to people. I've been trying to do it with my wife for years and it hasn't worked. She's still shy, but I try to interject that with her as well, where I want to make her feel comfortable. Uh, that she'll talk and she'll be more free to express herself publicly, like I try to do a gameplay with her. Uh,
Thank you, brother. That's a
uh,
nice comment. Thank you.
where I try to play where it takes two, and she refused to get on the mic, and I was like, let's talk while we're playing. I think it
Yeah.
would be so awesome. I think we'll be dope. You're
Yeah.
not showing your face; we're just talking.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
she didn't want to do it. She almost took out the hatchet and cut my head off. She's like, no, I'm not doing that. You're crazy. So it was kind of funny. Oh, I see. It says, "Oh, you're the truth, Hebot. Singing also is the truth, along with a handful of guys." Oh, thank you, Poseidon. See,
Thanks,
that means
Poseidon.
that's
Much
what I'm talking
respect,
about.
brother. Much
That's
respect.
that's what I'm talking about. See, comments like that, support like that, people like that is what makes it all worth it. Everything. It makes it all worth it. It touches me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because at least I know. Excuse me, guys. I'm getting a little tear
It's all
eyed.
right, man. It's
At
okay,
least I
man.
know. At least I know that I'm not looked at in this community as a mindless piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't go away, don't get away from the perception they'll see one point or at one time from a person because of differences in beliefs, let's say, or because they saw me on Next Gen podcast, arguing with a younger kid that really needed me to be just as aggressive to him because he was being aggressive to me and disrespectful, so that he sees that just because you're older doesn't mean you're incapable to defend yourself, right?
Right.
Which was my mind. It was my mindset when that happened, right? And it's nice to know and feel and see that there's people that
Like
see over
Poseidon.
that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
Poseidon, that see over all
It's
that,
very nice, man.
and that sees the real you, right? For what you're trying to be, just like you have. Like you've said to me many times, I think you shot me out in every single one of your videos, and I just feel
Yeah.
ashamed that I never able to really reciprocate back. But it's like I told you, is that I don't know how to do it because if I'm doing a figure video, you're not really a figure reviewer. I can't really mention you because people won't know who you are. But since I always do things with you, or if I do something like video game related that's retro, I can mention you. Oh yeah, it's Sega Man, check him out. because he does a lot of good retro stuff. It has to make sense, right? I can't just send to you an audience, right, that is not going to care about you, right? And so it's 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 hard for me, but I feel at the same time like I let you down when I don't do it and return back the favor.
No,
But it's
no.
never personal, it's never personal,
Yeah, I know
and
that.
I've
I
noted
know
that,
that, man.
so um, but yeah, yeah. So it's nice to know that I've touched people like that the way I wanted to, the way I've always intended since I came on the scene, where it's always been about I want to make people love what I do for me, um, and not look at me as like a scumbag. In other words, which I know
Right.
people do, but it's okay.
Yep.
Sorry,
And
brother.
yeah, no problem, man. No problem. That was a really, really nice comment that Poseidon left here, man. It was really awesome. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Much
he's a
respect
great
to him,
guy.
man. Much respect.
He's a great guy. He was one of the reasons why I was able to do a giveaway, a big giveaway on my channel. He
Yeah.
gifted me Assassin's Creed. I don't know if it was the Unity one or it was no, it was the one
Oh,
when
really?
when they were in Egypt.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in
Oh,
Egypt. He
you're talking about Assassin's Creed Origins.
right. He had gifted to me because he wanted to give me a gift so that I can play it and review it and
Great
stuff.
game.
And,
Fantastic. Beautiful game.
and right, right. And but I told him at that time that my son already had bought it. So I
Yeah.
asked him, would you be offended or would you be upset if I just pay it forward and give it out on my channel and say that it was because you sponsored it and it was thanks to you? And he said no, go right ahead. And so I that's why I did the giveaway and gave that out on my channel. It was my first really big giveaway I did on my channel, which was courtesy of Poseidon. So he's
He
been
said
really
Gears 5. Poseidon said Gears 5.
years five, years five. I remember. Oh, I guess he's talking about something else. I don't know.
Yeah. It
But
could
yeah,
be.
but he did do that, and I've
Yeah.
always been so grateful to him because of it. Always.
Yeah. Well, Hebot, man, this was a great podcast, man. I really enjoyed doing this, man. I really want to thank everybody that came in here and rocked out with me and Hebot today, man. I really appreciate you guys. These are true gamers in here. Uh, some of them I've known for a long time. I want to give a shout out to T Reaper. I want to give a shout out to Poseidon, great brother. You know what I mean? Wild Horse 74, he was in here. He's been rocking out with us, I think, when we started the game talk with Sega Man.
Yeah,
But now
it's the
it's
very,
the
very
Alpha
beginning.
podcast. He's been here.
Mhm.
And what's the other guy's name here?
Well, we had
I think it's
Louis L stop
Louis
by.
L. Our brother has
We
always rocked out with us.
we had Jazz Bass stop
Jazz
by.
Baz. What's the guy with the
Uh,
I can't say his name. Pik
uh,
Punkin.
Patrick's
We
Patrick's
have
stop by.
Peltrex.
Peltrex stop by. Yeah,
But there
he
was
stopped
another
by.
guy right here. I'll put his right here. I
Oh
can't
yeah, yeah,
say his
yeah. It's called Pecan Fusion.
Pecan
Mm-hmm.
Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
Another good brother that stopped past and rocked out with us, man. We really appreciate this, guys. I'm not a really big channel. You know, if my
Yeah.
channel grows in subscribers, I do appreciate and respect that, man. But I love gaming. And if my channel was to just stay at 400 or 500 subscribers, I'm not going to stop doing this because I love gaming and the passion of collecting and enjoying gaming and rocking out with my brother Hebot, E-Rock, and the rest of our crew, man. I'm not going to stop. You know what I mean? But I really appreciate everybody that comes and listens to us, man, when it comes to gaming. Really appreciate you guys.
Big time. Thank
So,
you
Hebot,
to each and every one of you.
brother, is there anything you would
Uh,
like to say?
no, brother, just thank you so much for dedicating this show to me. Dedicating your time.
Thank you, T Reaper.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you, T, for your presence, brother,
Thank
for
you.
your support.
Thank you, bro.
Um, and just for for believing in me enough to wanting to do a show about me, which I hope people come and see. I mean, I want traffic from your channel for your channel to continue to grow. I don't know if I'm really the solution to that, but I know you don't do that because of that. You didn't interview me here because you're trying to look for subscribers.
No, absolutely not.
You interview me because you're a friend and you
Hmm.
really enjoy me and you wanted to hear my story. I'm pretty sure that you never really heard some parts of it, right? So,
Right.
and I hope that I didn't let you down. I hope that
You did, and this was great.
I hope I gave you some good stories or at least some tidbits of what was going on that you
Yes.
might not have known. And to the people that watch it now or later, the viewers, I hope that you get a lot of views because if either way, it's all in good fun, and that's the whole point. And I hope people enjoy my his little history and my story about it.
Thank you, T. He says you're educational, Hebot.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you, T.
All right, man.
And so
Thank
are
you,
you,
man.
Sega.
That
Hmm.
feels really good for you to say that, T. I mean, we don't get many comments,
Hmm.
like that, man. So it's really nice that you say that,
Yeah, we
brother.
usually we usually just looked at as, hey, these are the old farts. Well, T knows how to
You know.
keep the.
Yeah.
He needs to continue. He knows how to put us in the bracket of the old farts, but he knows how to respect us
Yeah. Yeah.
and appreciate what we do. So it means a lot, T. Thank you.
All right, brother Hebot. So tell everybody, brother, where they can find you, man.
Oh, sure thing. Well, guys, if you're interested in following this old fart, uh, that has a lot of love for gaming and a lot of love for those who follow me. I am on Instagram under C_respect. I'm trying to grow it. That's why I always mention it. I don't have a lot of followers there. Also, I am on Twitter under hebot, powerful gamer. You guys can find me on Twitter. Also, no, on Twitch when I do my streams. I believe it's hebot and then it's _8. I'm not really sure. I got to look into that. I'll give it the link to my brother Sega Man, so you can put it in the description below once the video is uploaded right on the channel regularly. You can also find me on Xbox Live and the Nintendo Switch under hebot 8, capital H, capital B. Every other letter is lowercase, and a hyphen between the E and the B. Then you could also find me on PlayStation's network, which I should have my video up right after this. I did a
Nice.
I did a
Nice.
buyer's guide of PS3 games that you should buy that are only available on
Oh,
PS3.
nice. I'll be watching.
Um, so hopefully you guys a little long, but hopefully you guys will like it, and it's informative and it helps you. And that is I'm on Al Fell from Sky on PlayStation Network. Then of course, as always, you can find me on Sunday nights with my brothers. Sega Man being one of them on the Exile podcast, and E Rock and my brother Unlimited and Tuckmaster. Big shout outs to them. You can find me
Shouts out to the
on
brothers.
Saturdays, which will be tomorrow, probably again with my brother Sega Man in the Alpha podcast.
We'll try to
And
have Sega Forever on, maybe.
yeah, and other people too. Yeah, absolutely. Um, we can also you can also find me on my channel when I'm able to do it and I feel up to it under my podcast. We got next.
We got next. Yes.
And with Mr. 100, whenever he wants me on, he shoots me a link because I am part of Intro Media Gaming still. So I'll be in the Xbox Hot No Games podcast with him. And sometimes with Retro Renegades with my brother, the graphic god, J Dubs, because he shoots me a link sometimes. So anytime he invites me, I'll always try to show up because those are my brothers over there. And that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, and anywhere where you want to follow toxicity and hate, you'll definitely find me there. I'm there. I'm probably I'm probably the one stirring the pot just to get people angry.
Yeah. Oh, guys, also, if you want to collect for your PS Vita,
Mhm.
he bought put me down to a shooter game on there called Gaia Seed. So I bought Gaia Seed on there, and I
Mhm.
bought Chaloniki. These are some
Oh.
weird shoot 'em ups because I like shoot 'em up games. But if it wasn't for Hebot telling me about that before the store closes, they closed down for the Vita and the PlayStation 3 and all that. You guys should really take advantage and buy some of those great games on there, like the shoot 'em ups that are dirt cheap. Guys Seed right now goes for 400, almost $500. You can get on there now for what, 4.99, I think,
Yeah, I think it's 5.99. The price.
or five
Yeah, that,
ninety nine.
I put it in the video I did with the
Yeah,
like the buyer's guide, but I called it an Xbox fan buyer's guide to the PS3 store games that you should buy before they close.
but
So
you
I want.
guys need to do that soon because if you don't, you're not going to be able to get them.
Yeah, I think the store closes in June. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So take advantage, guys. And I just want to say, if it wasn't for you guys, man, also that support your boy Sega Man, you help me to keep doing this, man. I really appreciate and respect all of you that come and rock out with us, man. You can always find me on my channel, Sega Man 101 on YouTube, also on Instagram, and also on Twitter. So I just want to thank you guys for coming and rocking out with us, man. Coming Xbox Alpha podcast with Hebot again. Probably have a special guest, Sega Forever, around 2 or 2:30. We'll be going live, man. Much respect, guys. Xbox for life. We multiply it. Or you guys wear your mask, all right?
Yeah, and remember, Xbox for life, like my brother Sega Man said, like a sickness that can't be cured.
Be
That's my
cured.
saying. That's my slogan. Don't get trigger paid. People, it's all in gaming. It's all in good fun.
All right,
Peace,
guys.
guys.